just going back to your question about the yeah. So let me just give you some broad strokes. First is the narrative, diba? Unlike Malaysia and Indonesia, that predominantly Islamic or Muslim yung majority, no? Ang Philippines majority Christian. So one advice they gave is to take care of the narrative that it's not Christian versus Muslim. And they're helping us with that. Why is the narrative important? Because extremism and terrorism thrives on the narrative that jihad is necessary and is part of the pillars of Islam and yung pang-aapi sa mga Muslim. So that's why Malaysia and Indonesia are taking the initiative and helping us dun sa narrative. Number two, who spreads this narrative? So they're through information sharing, through also technology. Remember, ISIS uses heavily social media. Diba? Yung fake news, ibang level din ang ISIS. Diba? Kasi it's more than news. It's a fake worldview. It's a fake ideology. It's a fake religion na inaano niya. It's not the true Islam that we know and we respect. No? The third one is cooperation. Diba? In your own country, minsan mahirap mag-coordinate yung PDEA at saka police at saka customs. So imagine the countries coordinating cross borders. But as the terrorist fighters return from Syria and Iraq, it's very important that the ASEAN nations have a way of coordinating and share intelligence kasi kanya-kanya din tayong intelligence sharing partners. So like Philippines, no, may bilateral agreements tayo sa sharing, pero not necessarily nagsishare sa atin, nagsishare sa Indonesia and vice versa. So that's also one area. Diba? There's a couple of areas. Then the operational part, as I said, no, one, we can't talk about it much because that will affect the operational security. Number two, I'd rather defer to the security personnel, the security cluster, kasi they can tell you more whether
to clarify, you met in September.
Yes. Yes, 2 or 3 times. No? So we had, although yung meeting was more about Myanmar and the northern Rakhine state.
Can you share about
the meeting?
Because you mentioned about the pang-aapi.
100%, yung unang concern is humanitarian. Beyond all the other issues, when you see people who are hungry, children that are vulnerable, women that are vulnerable, disease that is easily preventable, but because there's no water or there's no food or no shelter. No? So our statement, the ASEAN and the discussion focus on 4 things. No? First and foremost is the humanitarian. How to get access, how to allow, how do we do things individually or bilaterally, and then how do we do it as ASEAN. And nangyari na to nung 13, through the ASEAN humanitarian arm. Second na pinag-usapan yung Kofi Annan recommendations, which basically addresses the root of the problem in the Northern Rakhine state, no? And its implementation or encouraging Myanmar to continue and even speed up in dealing with the recommendations. The third was the stopping of all violence from all sides. Kasi nga, di ba, how can you even deal with humanitarian and the displaced people kung pati yung mga pumapasok to help ay binabaril din kasi violence continues, di ba? And lastly was the us pushing for direct communication and dialogue between Myanmar and Bangladesh, considering that hundreds of thousands have crossed the border and Bangladesh now has to deal with that. No? So that's where we agree. There are areas that we cannot, we did not agree, or some people, some countries, had a very strong words, and we understand. But it's part of the discussions, no? And we'd rather dwell in where we agree. But the discussions continue. So 3 beses yon. Isa na kami lang, and instead of kaming actually 9 ang ministers, 8 or 9 ang ministers, tapos 1 or 2 ang representative ng ministers. And then ginawa na lang naming retreat, pinalabas namin lahat. And then lumipat kami in our dialogue with the UN. But yun, very formal. And then we had a dinner. The trilateral, we didn't convene as that, but we continue to talk one-on-one. Then our militaries are coordinating.
Sir, you said po na there are areas you cannot agree on. So you're saying you must be referring dun sa Malaysian statement, no? Na it dissociated with the chairman's statement.
Yes.
And you said po na it's an act of being mature. However, yung decision making kasi ng ASEAN, di ba po, it's still based on consensus. So how were you able to issue that statement when merong disagreement?
Okay. Well, two things. No? On one hand, you have non-interference and you have consensus. On the other hand, you have relevance. Meaning, pag may problema, you're there. And words matter. Public opinion matter. Regional opinion, you matter. I mean, kung walang media at hindi nyo ilabas yung statement, walang pressure sa mga gobyerno. No? So, this is what ASEAN has to grapple with. And this is what they had to struggle with in the last 50 years. Diba? How mas madali, it's easy, for example, when we talk about North Korea. It's a more complex problem, but the solution is more simple because we're dealing with a non-ASEAN state. But when you're dealing with an ASEAN state and you do have differing views, it's difficult. That's why my mechanism, the mechanism is the chairman's statement. So the foreign minister statement have to be consensus-driven, no? Meaning 10 out of 10. Also, the certain actions, no, pagka pinagalaw na yung ibang organs. But the chairman's statement is solely the responsibility of the chairman. That's why even beforehand, I knew that Malaysia would make that statement in this shape, and I told him that we respect it.
Sir, you said po na magiging, it's a step na mature step ito. So sa ASEAN Summit ba, will you be talking about whether you veer towards different na decision making from
No,
consensus?
what I meant is a sense of maturity is even the most immature, it's easy when you all agree. Diba, dito lang sa atin, if we all agree, we don't need any maturity. But when we disagree, how do we still be kind to each other? How do I still respect you as professional journalists? How do you respect me as a civil servant, diba? So that's what I was referring to. That despite the emotions, despite the realities, you know, kasi any conflict, grabe ang suffering. So we understand the stand of each and every country. Yun ang sinasabi kong maturity doon. But it was really difficult for all of us. Because hindi naman pwedeng wala kang statement. O hindi naman kami pwede mag-issue ng foreign minister statement na hindi kumpleto. So, but just like our dealings with China, will we allow our dispute to affect our overall relationship? So in the same manner, will we allow our disagreement in what's happening in Myanmar and how to address it? Will we allow it to affect everything else? Now, as to your second part of your question, what will I be addressing? This November, it's hindi na to AMM, hindi na to ministers. So leaders na to. So actually, it's the option of the leaders what they want to. May agenda, may prepared, but that's why there's a retreat. That's why any of the world leaders and ASEAN leaders can bring up issues and topics they want to do. So we're hoping that much will, when we left New York and when we talked to the SecGen about it, we were hoping that there'll be giant steps, no, toward addressing the problem in Myanmar. I have to thank Senator Gordon in behalf of the Philippine Red Cross. No, he made a trip. He talked to the state councilor. I'm waiting for a call today na i-update niya ako. No? But the Philippines is playing a part, whether through certain individuals or organizations, to also deliver humanitarian help.
Sec, as of this morning, may update na ba kung matutuloy talaga yun o magkakaroon talaga ng bilateral si President Trump tsaka si Pangulong Duterte?
Na-confirm ko lang this morning that it's in the works. But as to the time, etc., our people are still... But it's usually like that. Even ako sa New York, biglang sasabihin pwede dito, hindi. Kasi nga, it's karambola eh. Everyone wants to talk to everyone. Then minsan may tripartite, minsan may bilateral. Di ba? Minsan may ganitong block, ganyang block. So then everyone wants to meet with the ASEAN then. So we're dealing with a lot of requests and as much as possible gusto natin pagbigyan. But it's not that easy talaga.
So pwede mangyari
I've been getting, hindi naman nasty, but messages then saying na dapat mapagbigyan yung X or Y o yung leader na ganito, ganyan. No? But when you're dealing with the schedules of the world leaders, hindi ganun kadali. Kasi remember, for many of them across the world, like US and Russia, it's a long trip for them.
Yeah.
For President Trump, he'll be going to other countries before Vietnam, then finally the Philippines. So hindi din madali yung schedule nila, and we understand.
Sir, habol ko lang, yung kagabi sinabi niyo raw po sa Malacanang reporters na we are not accepting European aid anymore. We have decided.
Ni-reiterate ko lang yung sinabi ni Presidente sa speech. And then they were asking me nga about UK, but I'll be very honest with you. Behind the President, the audio wasn't very good. Kaya what I heard talaga yung sinabi niyang hindi natatanggapin sa EU. So Atle got the instructions days before, but was not allowed to talk about it. And usual job ko naman is to still see if there's an opening, di ba? Bridging ang trabaho namin. But once the President announced it in front of the uniformed personnel and the Malacanang press corps, di ba? Then I can talk about it, and then it's a matter of how we will implement it.
Sir, sorry.
Actually, we haven't accepted naman. Kasi there's still talks on the wording kasi ng agreements. But with the President directive now, then we'll have to communicate formally to the EU Ambassador, His Excellency Ambassador Yesen, that, as of now, hindi tayo tatanggap ng aid. It should not affect our overall relationship. It should not affect our trade. It should not affect our bilateral relationship, no? Because it's parang ako, pag may bibigay ako sa inyo, sabihin, sorry sir, media kami, so it's unethical, or sir, pwedeng coffee pero hindi mo kami pwedeng i-book. Diba? It's parang, it shouldn't affect our relationship, our working relationship.
Is that all kinds of EU aid? Are we rejecting? Are we going to reject?
That's
all
my
kinds?
impression. So aid meaning grants, and then all, if not most of their grants kasi may mga agreements. So that's why I'm monitoring yung mga reports nyo, then yung post ng mga nagtatanong. So marami nagtatanong, anong relasyon na tumanggap ka ng pera sa pakikialam nila? Ang view ng Presidente and shared by a number of cabinet members is that these agreements give them the wherewithal or the legal authority na makialam na nag-cross na from kung ano lang naman kasi kung yung international obligations natin, anyone can bring that up. Pero when it goes na may destabilization or meron ng false information, etc. That EU has clarified, di ba, na just like us, we don't control our senators. We don't control our congressmen. They can go around the world and say anything. So hindi rin naman kontrolado ng EU yung kanilang parliamentarians. But having said that, yung EU-based na mga think tanks and some of the human rights groups, grabe na yung conclusions, paninira and everything. And it really creates the environment for them and for us, for their policymakers, in not being able to deal with us in a much more friendly manner. So parang kami, rather than mag-away tayo na may aim ganito, sige, pabayaan nyo na lang yung mga part ng country nyo na gustong mag-criticize, tatanggapin na lang namin. Pero wag na tayo mag-usap ng aid and grants. Because it will complicate lang. We'll feel and we'll view it as nakikialam kayo. Kayo naman, you'll view it na may karapatang kayong makialam.
Sir, ito yung just to clarify, di ba a few months ago merong sinabi na we are rejecting new EU grants, and then biglang pag-iisipan ng
and then I met with the
Malacanang.
EU
Yeah.
and we agreed on a couple of things, and nagulat nga sila that I offered a quarterly discussion on human rights.
Quarterly.
That's one of the things we talked about. Then full engagement on a broad side of issues. But we explained to them yung sa President. At first, they were not open at all into amending the agreements. But when their deputy foreign minister and then their foreign minister came nung ASEAN, their deputy foreign minister came before that for a related event, they agreed to take a second look at some of the wording, and we were in the middle of doing that now. Kasi it takes time, it goes back and forth. Kasi ang daming they have to show it to a lot of people. We have to show it to a lot of people. No? For example, one of the stipulations is unilaterally, pwede lang putulin yung program. So for example, tulong nila sa DILG. Tapos sabihin nila, hindi, may human rights violation kayo, putulin namin. So, we didn't want it unilateral. I mean, so wala man lang due process, hindi man lang tayo mag-uusap. Diba? So that's, for example, one of the things that we were talking. But of course, they were explaining to us that it's standard and everything. As I told you guys, no, I have to be honest with you, it's difficult for me and for the DFA. Kasi on one hand, di ba, not only do we agree, but we support the President's stand, but on the other hand, it's our job to keep making friends and to keep building bridges. Kami yung taga-bate, hindi kami yung taga-away. You might not view that as me, but that's the new me because this is my new job.
Sir, Senator Trillanes is in the United States right now and meeting with top policymakers and politicians there. Are you aware about the nature of his trip?
I was made aware first by post of some people and then later on by Senator Rubio's press. It's a tweet ba or Instagram, no? And then now everyone's talking about it. As you know, I've worked with Senator Trillanes in the past. Alam niyo naman yung laki ng respeto ko din sa Senate as an institution. So all I can say is that although it's a free world, it doesn't help the country if there's misinformation, disinformation, and especially false news. So the same people na pinupuntahan niya are the same people that inofferan namin to engage and to show them the real numbers, to get their staffers, to meet with our staffers and talk about it. No? So I believe in the American system and I believe that they'll listen. But as I said, there's politics in human rights. No, but there's a line. Diba? There's a line. Any one of us, kahit na, even when I was a staunch critic of some presidents, and I've been a staunch critic of many presidents, no? I've never gone abroad to ask for help to topple them. So, yun ang speculation now. But to be fair, DFA doesn't deal with speculation. So, unless may confirmation kami, we will assume na good faith and we will assume that it's a normal engagement. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Secretary, Facebook.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?